Welcome to another deep dive. Today we're tackling a decision that honestly weighs heavily on millions around the world, choosing an English language proficiency test. Whether you're dreaming of studying abroad, maybe working in a new country, or even just making a new home, this test, it's often a huge, sometimes pretty anxiety-inducing step towards that future. And if you've dipped even a toe into researching this, you've probably hit what we call the fog of uncertainty.
Right.
Online forums, they're just buzzing with conflicting advice. Is one easier? Is one, more prestigious? Am I going to choose the wrong one? It can feel kind of paralyzing when you just desperately need some clarity.
And that's exactly what we want to do in this deep dive, to, cut through that fog for you. Look, we're not here to declare one test universally better than the other, because frankly, that just doesn't exist. The right choice is, well, it's deeply personal. It really depends on your unique skills, maybe your comfort with technology, your learning style, and definitely your specific goals.
Absolutely. So how are we going to help you make sense of this whole thing? Well, we're starting with a sort of high-level comparison. Then we're going forensic, really diving deep into each section of both tests. We'll unpack their scoring systems, cover the practical stuff, the logistics, and most importantly, we're going to give you a personalized framework, something to help you figure out your ideal test. Okay, let's unpack this beast. Right, let's kick things off with the basics. The foundational understanding. What are IELTS and TOEFL at their core, and who are the organizations running these things?
Okay, so on one side, you've got the International English Language Testing System, IELTS, as most people call it. That one's jointly managed by three bodies: the British Council, IDP, IELTS Australia, and Cambridge Assessment English. Quite a team. Then on the other side, there's the Test of English as a Foreign Language, or TOEFL. Usually people mean the TOEFL IBT, that's the internet-based test. And that's run by ETS, which is an American nonprofit organization.
Okay, and right there, just hearing who runs them, we get our first major distinction, don't we? The main English dialect you'll hear. For IELTS, you're looking at international English. So that means you're likely to hear a lot of British, Australian, New Zealand accents, maybe others too.
Quite a mix.
Whereas TOEFL, it leans heavily towards North American English, so mainly American and Canadian accents.
That's right. And their purposes, while they often overlap for university entry, they do have some key differences too. IELTS actually offers two main types. There's academic, which is specifically for university study, as the name suggests, and then there's general training. That one's designed more for immigration or work purposes, maybe secondary education.
Okay, so two flavors of IELTS. What about TOEFL?
TOEFL is predominantly the IBT format, the internet-based one, and that's almost exclusively used for university admissions. They used to have other formats, but IBT is really the main one now.
Gotcha. And the actual test format itself, how you take the test, it presents a pretty big choice too, right?
Yeah, a huge one for some people. IELTS gives you flexibility. You can choose to take it either computer-delivered or paper-based. A lot of people still prefer pen and paper, so that's a big plus for IELTS.
Definitely. And TOEFL?
TOEFL IBT is exclusively computer-based. No paper option there.
Right. What about the time commitment on the day? How long are you sitting there?
IELTS clocks in at roughly 2 hours and 45 minutes, total test time. TOEFL actually got shortened back in 2023. It's now a bit more concise, around 2 hours.
Oh, wow. 45 minutes shorter.
Yeah.
That's quite noticeable if you're thinking about test fatigue.
It can be, yeah. If endurance is maybe a concern for you, that's definitely something to keep in mind.
Okay, so let's try and summarize this kind of 30,000-foot view. The core distinction, the thing that seems like it'll keep popping up, is this. IELTS seems to favor variety in its tasks, and crucially, it keeps that direct human element, especially in the speaking part.
The face-to-face interview.
Exactly. Whereas TOEFL really champions a highly standardized, computer-delivered format.
Yeah.
And it puts a big emphasis on integrated skills, kind of simulating that digital academic world.
That's a great summary. It sets the stage perfectly for digging deeper.
Okay, good. Because after that big picture view, I think a lot of listeners find the real struggle starts when they try to actually picture themselves taking the test. So to really choose the right one for you, you need to understand how your specific skills get tested. Let's peel back the layers now. Forensic analysis time, section by section. Starting with reading.
Right, the reading section. Both tests want to see if you can understand academic texts, naturally, but they go about it in really different ways. They almost demand different strategic muscles from your brain.
Okay, how so? Let's start with IELTS reading. What's that like?
Well, for IELTS reading, you get 3 long passages. We're talking typically 700 to 900 words each, and you've got 60 minutes total to answer 40 questions. The texts themselves, they come from authentic sources like academic journals, magazines, books, real-world stuff.
And the feel of it.
The feel is often described as a bit of a race against time. You're actively sort of hunting for specific answers, and there's a huge variety of question types. Some are notoriously tricky, like the true, false, not given ones. You also get matching headings, matching information, sentence completions, summaries, lots of different formats.
Wow, okay. So lots of variety, need for speed, hunting for details. Sounds intense.
It can be. The key skill is really about quickly locating specific details under pressure. Skimming and scanning are vital.
So if IELTS reading feels like a high-stakes scavenger hunt, how does TOEFL reading compare? Is it just a completely different animal?
It really is quite different, yes. TOEFL writing usually gives you 2 longer passages, maybe around 700 words each, and you get 10 questions per passage for a total of 35 minutes.
Fewer questions, less time overall.
Right. And the passages themselves are typically excerpts from university-level textbooks. Often, key vocabulary might even be defined for you within the text or glossary.
Ah, okay. And the experience? Less frantic.
Generally, yes. It feels more like a traditional academic comprehension test. You have a bit more time per question, theoretically. The challenge here is less about speed reading for tiny details and more about deep comprehension, understanding the author's purpose, making inferences, seeing the structure of the argument.
And the question types reflect that.
They do. They're almost all multiple choice, focusing on things like factual information, negative facts, inference, rhetorical purpose, vocabulary meaning. And there are a couple of unique types, too, like insert text, where you drag a sentence into the right place in the paragraph, and prose summary, where you choose the 3 main ideas from 6 options.
Okay, drag and drop. Interesting. So what does this all mean for you, the listener, if you're trying to decide?
Well, the real aha moment here isn't just what you're reading, but how your brain likes to process information when you're under pressure.
Right. Are you a skimmer or a deep diver?
Exactly. If your natural tendency is to quickly scan, pinpoint keywords, find the answer, and move on, IELTS reading might feel, well, more familiar, maybe even comfortable despite the time pressure. But if you're someone who prefers to really analyze, absorb the nuances, understand the whole picture, then TOEFL reading could play more to your strengths, provided, of course, you can still manage the time effectively.
That makes sense. It's about matching the test style to your processing style. Okay, let's move on to listening. Another core skill, but again, I suspect they test it differently.
They absolutely do. Both require you to understand spoken English, obviously, but the context, the style, the task demands. Yeah, worlds apart again.
Tell us about IELTS listening first.
Okay, IELTS listening has 4 sections, 40 questions total. And the key thing is the audio plays only once. You get about 30 minutes for the audio itself. Plus, if you're taking the paper-based test, you get an extra 10 minutes at the end just to transfer your answers over to the answer sheet. Computer-based doesn't need that transfer time.
Right. And the content. What are you listening to?
It progresses in difficulty. Section 1 is usually a pretty straightforward transactional conversation, like booking something. Section 2 is often an everyday monologue, maybe giving directions or information. Then Section 3 is usually an academic conversation, maybe students discussing a project. And Section 4 is typically a longer academic monologue or lecture.
And accents, we mentioned that earlier.
Yes, this is crucial for IELTS. You need to be ready for a wide range of international accents, British, Australian, Canadian, American, maybe others. It really tests your global listening comprehension.
And you answer while you listen.
Yes, that's the other key challenge. You have the questions in front of you, and you need to listen for the answers and write them down pretty much simultaneously. It demands serious concentration and multitasking.
Okay, multitasking under pressure with diverse accents. Got it. How does TOEFL listening compare? Does it also throw different accents at you?
TOEFL listening is structured quite differently. You'll typically hear maybe 2 or 3 conversations and 3 or 4 lectures. Like IELTS, the audio plays only once. The whole section takes about 36 minutes. And the setting. The content is almost exclusively set within a North American university campus environment. So you'll hear conversations, say, between a student and a librarian or a student and a professor, and then academic lectures delivered by a professor.
So mostly North American accents then?
Almost exclusively, yes. American or Canadian. That's a big difference from IELTS.
And the task itself. How do you answer?
This is the defining feature of TOEFL listening. You don't see the questions while you're listening. Instead, you're expected to take notes. Good notes. Only after the conversation or lecture finishes do the questions appear on the screen, and you answer them based on your memory and, critically, your notes.
Wow, okay, so note-taking isn't just helpful, it's essential.
Absolutely non-negotiable. Your notes are basically your only resource for answering those questions accurately. It really simulates sitting in a university lecture and needing to recall information later.
That's fascinating. So TOEFL is explicitly testing your ability to take effective, organized notes, a key academic skill.
Precisely. Whereas IELTS listening is testing more of that real-time processing, that ability to multitask, listen, read the question, identify the answer, write it down, all at once.
So again, it boils down to your preference, doesn't it? Process on the fly with IELTS or rely on your detailed notes afterwards with TOEFL? Very different demands.
It'd be different.
Okay, now let's talk about what many people consider the big one, the speaking section. You hear so much debate about this. It seems like this is where the tests feel most distinct personality-wise.
Oh, absolutely. The experience could not be more different. This is probably the single most significant differentiator for many test takers.
So walk us through IELTS speaking first. What happens there?
With IELTS speaking, you're having a one-on-one, face-to-face interview with a trained human examiner. It is recorded for quality control and remarking if needed, but the interaction is live. It lasts about 11 to 14 minutes, typically, and it's broken down into 3 parts.
3 parts. Okay.
Part 1 is basically general questions about you, your home, work, studies, hobbies, fairly familiar topics. Part 2 is the long turn. You get a cue card with a topic and some points to cover. You have 1 minute to prepare, make some notes, and then you need to speak about that topic for 1 to 2 minutes continuously.
Okay, the mini presentation bit.
Kind of, yeah. And then part 3 flows from the part 2 topic. The examiner asks more abstract discussion-style questions related to that theme. It becomes more of a two-way conversation, exploring ideas in more depth.
So it feels quite natural, like a structured conversation.
It's designed to feel that way, yes. The examiner can adapt, maybe rephrase a question if you don't understand. It feels interactive.
What's the main challenge then?
For many, it's performance anxiety. Speaking directly to a person who is clearly evaluating you can be nerve-wracking. And you also need to think quite quickly on your feet, especially in part 3.
Right. Okay, so a direct, real-time conversation with a human. That sounds, well, very different from what I understand TOEFL requires. You're talking to a machine.
Pretty much. In stark contrast, TOEFL speaking involves you speaking into a headset microphone connected to the computer. Your responses are recorded digitally. These recordings are then graded later by a combination of ETS's AI scoring system called SpeechRater and certified human raters, so no live human interaction during the test itself.
And the structure, how long does it take?
It takes about 16 minutes now, and it consists of 4 distinct tasks. Task 1 is the only independent task where you just state and support a personal opinion on a familiar topic. The other 3 tasks, tasks 2, 3, and 4, are all integrated.
Integrated, meaning?
Meaning you have to combine skills. For example, task 2 involves reading a short passage about a campus issue, then listening to a conversation about it, and then you have just 60 seconds to speak, summarizing the opinions and stating your own view. Task 3 is similar but academic. Read an academic passage, listen to a lecture extract expanding on it, then summarize the lecture's points in 60 seconds. And task 4 is listen-speak. You listen to a longer lecture extract and then summarize the key points in 60 seconds.
Wow, 60 seconds isn't long to synthesize all that.
It's incredibly tight timing. The whole experience feels like a series of quite high-pressure academic tasks, one after another, with the clock ticking down very visibly.
And the challenge here, besides the timing?
The core challenge is that rapid integration of skills, reading, listening, comprehending, synthesizing key information, organizing your thoughts, and then speaking clearly and coherently, all within those very short time frames. And again, note-taking during the listening parts is absolutely crucial.
This raises such an important question for you, the listener, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Which scenario feels more comfortable or perhaps less terrifying for you? Do you think you'd perform better with that human interaction, that chance for a bit of rapport, maybe even asking for clarification? Or do you actually prefer the anonymity of speaking into a machine, knowing it's being recorded for later, maybe less immediate pressure?
It's a huge factor. Your personal comfort level here can genuinely make or break your performance. It's not about which is better, but which environment allows you to showcase your speaking ability most effectively.
Such a key point. Okay, let's move to the final section, writing. I'm guessing, based on the pattern, we're going to see another fundamental difference here.
You guessed right. Again, you see that philosophical split. IELTS tends to test standalone writing skills, while TOEFL focuses much more on assessing your ability to write within an academic context, often integrating other sources.
All right, lay out IELTS writing for us first.
Okay, IELTS writing has 2 tasks, and you get 60 minutes total to complete both. And like the reading, you have the option. You can handwrite your answers if you take the paper test, or type them if you take the computer-delivered one.
2 tasks in 60 minutes. What are they?
Task 1 is different depending on whether you take academic or general training. For academic, you have to describe visual information like a graph, chart, table, or diagram in at least 150 words. You're summarizing trends, comparing data. For general training, task 1, you have to write a letter, maybe requesting information or explaining a situation, also at least 150 words.
Okay, so data description or letter writing, and task 2.
Task 2 is the same for both academic and general training. You have to write a formal essay of at least 250 words in response to a specific point of view, argument, or problem. You need to present and justify an opinion, discuss different views, or propose solutions. It carries more weight in the scoring than task 1.
So the overall feel is demonstrating 2 distinct writing skills: data analysis description, or letter writing, and then constructing a well-supported formal essay.
Exactly. Time management between the 2 tasks is critical, and using precise language, good organization, and appropriate vocabulary are key.
Okay, clear enough. Now, how does TOEFL's integrated approach change the game in the writing section?
TOEFL writing also has 2 tasks, but crucially, both must be typed on the computer. And the total time is shorter, just 29 minutes for both tasks combined.
Wow, 29 minutes for 2 tasks. That sounds intense. What are they?
Task 1 is the classic integrated writing task. You first read a short academic passage on a topic. Then you listen to a short lecture where the speaker typically challenges or casts doubt on the points made in the reading. After that, you have 20 minutes to write a summary explaining how the lecture points relate to and usually contradict the reading passage points. The key here is synthesizing the information accurately without injecting your own opinion.
Okay, so pure synthesis. Reading plus listening, writing.
Task 2.
Task 2 is a newer format called academic discussion. It replaced the old independent essay. Here, you rate a short online discussion prompt, usually a question posed by a professor and maybe brief posts from 2 other students. Then you have just 10 minutes to write your own contribution to that discussion, expressing and supporting your own opinion relevant to the topic. It's meant to simulate online university course discussions.
10 minutes, that's really fast.
It is. It demands concise thinking and very rapid formulation of ideas. The overall experience with TOEFL writing feels like a direct simulation of university-level writing tasks you'd actually encounter. And the main challenge, besides the typing.
The challenge is that rapid synthesis for task 1, ensuring you accurately capture the relationship between the reading and lecture. And for task 2, it's formulating a clear, well-supported, and relevant post extremely quickly. And yes, typing speed is definitely a significant factor. If you're a slow typist, 29 minutes for both tasks will feel like no time at all.
So the fundamental difference really stands out, doesn't it? IELTS writing is testing your ability to, say, craft an argument or describe data pretty much from scratch, showing standalone writing skills.
Right.
Whereas TOEFL writing throws you right into an academic simulation demanding you integrate information from readings and lectures and respond quickly in a discussion format. It's really about what kind of writing scenario you feel more prepared for and what kind of thinking, standalone or integrated, comes more naturally under pressure.
Precisely.
Okay, wow, we've really dissected the course sections. So let's say you've gone through this gauntlet, you've taken the test. The next big question is, what do those numbers you get back actually mean? Let's break down the scoring.
Good idea. They use quite different systems. For IELTS, you receive what's called a band score for each of the 4 sections: reading, listening, speaking, writing. This score is on a scale of 0 to 9, and they use half-band increments, so you could get a 6.0, a 6.5, a 7.0, and so on.
0 to 9 bands. And the overall score?
Your overall band score is simply the average of those 4 individual section scores, rounded to the nearest half band.
And there's no simple pass or fail.
No, not really. Instead, universities, employers, or immigration authorities set their own minimum band score requirements. They might require an overall band of, say, 7.0, and sometimes they also specify minimums for individual sections, like needing at least a 6.5 in writing.
Okay, bands from 0 to 9, averaged. How does TOEFL scoring work? Is it points?
Yes, TOEFL uses a point system. You get a score from 0 to 30 for each of the 4 sections. These are then simply added together for a total score ranging from 0 up to a maximum of 120.
0 to 120 total. Straightforward addition. What about those super scores you sometimes hear about? My best scores.
Right. ETS offers my bestest scores, sometimes called super scores. This means they take your highest section scores from all your valid TOEFL tests taken within the last 2 years and combine them into a potentially higher overall score report.
So you can do well on reading one time, listening another time.
Exactly. And this is it's really important to remember that individual institutions get to decide whether or not they actually accept my bestest scores. Many still want to see your scores from a single test session.
It's so crucial to check the specific university's policy on that. Don't just assume they take super scores.
Absolutely critical. Always confirm directly with the program you're applying to.
Okay. Now, if we're trying to connect this to the bigger picture, setting goals, is there a rough equivalence between the two scoring systems? Like, what's a good score?
It's not a perfect science because the tests measure slightly different things in different ways, but there are generally accepted approximate equivalencies. For example, a very common benchmark, an IELTS band 7.0, is generally considered roughly equivalent to a TOEFL score somewhere in the range of 94 to 101 out of 120.
Okay, that gives a ballpark idea.
Yeah, but it's also worth noting that the scoring increments aren't perfectly linear. And especially at the higher end of the TOEFL scale, say above 100 or 110, the competition gets really intense, and every single point can matter a lot for competitive programs. Getting those top scores is tough.
Right. Good context. Okay, this leads us perfectly into the practical side of things because, like you said, the better test is completely useless if it's not actually accepted where you want to go. Let's talk acceptance, cost, availability, all that jazz.
Definitely. And let's start by busting a common myth, or at least an outdated one. You often hear people say, oh, IELTS for the UK, Australia, Canada, the Commonwealth countries, and TOEFL is mainly for the USA.
Yeah, I've definitely heard that. Is it true?
It used to be more true, perhaps decades ago. But the reality now, that stereotype is largely inaccurate for most universities and institutions. Both tests are incredibly widely accepted globally. We're talking over 11,500 institutions in more than 160 countries recognize both IELTS and TOEFL scores. Most universities in the US now readily accept IELTS, and similarly, most universities in the UK, Australia, and Canada accept TOEFL.
So the acceptance is actually really broad for both.
Extremely broad, which leads us to what you rightly called the golden rule.
Let me guess. Always check the specific requirements of the university and, crucially, the specific program you're applying to.
Exactly. Don't rely on forum posts or what your friend told you. Go directly to the university's official international admissions webpage. They will state clearly which tests they accept and what minimum scores they require. That's the only information that matters.
Sound advice. Okay, what about actually taking the test? Availability, format choices.
Well, as we touched on earlier, IELTS offers real flexibility here. You've got numerous test centers worldwide offering both the computer-delivered format and the traditional paper-based format.
Giving you that choice.
Yes. TOEFL IBT, being exclusively computer-based, is also offered at many test centers globally. Plus, a big development for TOEFL is the availability of the home edition in many regions.
The home edition, so you can take it from home.
Yes, exactly. You take the official TOEFL IBT on your own computer at home, monitored live by an online proctor through your webcam and microphone. It follows the same format and scoring, but offers huge convenience for people who might not live near a test center or prefer testing in their own space.
That's a pretty big deal, convenience-wise.
It really is, though you need to ensure your computer and room meet their strict technical and security requirements.
Right. Okay, cost. Are they roughly the same price?
Broadly speaking, yes. They're usually in a similar ballpark, typically ranging somewhere between $200 and $300 USD. However, the exact price does vary quite a bit depending on the country you're testing in, local taxes, and currency exchange rates. You need to check the specific price for your location.
Okay, comparable but check locally. And finally, getting your results back. How long does that take? Waiting for scores can be stressful.
It can. Both are actually pretty quick these days. For IELTS, if you take the computer-delivered test, results are usually available in just 3 to 5 days. The paper-based test takes a bit longer, around 13 calendar days.
3 to 5 days is fast. And TOEFL.
TOEFL IBT results are typically available online within 4 to 8 days after your test date, so also quite speedy. You generally don't have those agonizing long waits anymore for either test.
Good to know. Okay, we have covered a ton of ground here. We've looked at the structure, the content, the scoring, the practical stuff. Now it's really time to bring it all together and turn the lens inward. Because, as we said right at the start, the right choice depends entirely on you, on your personal profile.
Exactly. This isn't about figuring out which test is somehow inherently easier overall, because that's subjective and probably impossible to determine anyway. It's really about self-awareness.
It's about playing to your strengths, right?
Yeah,
Choosing the arena where you're most likely to perform at your best.
precisely. So let's guide you, the listener, through some key self-assessment questions. Think honestly about yourself as we go through these. Imagine yourself in these test scenarios.
Okay, first up, the accent question. How comfortable are you with understanding different ways English is spoken?
Yeah, think about it. Are you pretty comfortable tuning your ear to a wide range of international accents, British, Australian, maybe Indian or Singaporean English alongside American, like you'd encounter in IELTS listening?
Or,
Or do you find it significantly easier, maybe less mentally taxing, to primarily process North American accents, which is what you'll almost exclusively hear in TOEFL?
a quick tip here might be to just go online, find sample listening tracks for both IELTS and TOEFL, and see how you feel listening to them. That can be very revealing.
Excellent tip. Okay, next, the format question. This covers a few things, mainly relating to the computer versus paper aspect. First, and this is huge for TOEFL, how fast and accurate are you at typing?
Right, because TOEFL is all computer-based, and those writing tasks are timed very tightly.
Exactly. Aiming for something like 40 words per minute accurately is a decent benchmark for feeling comfortable with TOEFL writing. If you're a very slow two-finger typist, those timed writing tasks, especially the 10-minute academic discussion, are going to feel incredibly rushed and stressful.
Something to honestly assess. What else under format?
Well, just your preference for reading. Do you genuinely prefer reading long academic passages on a computer screen? Or do you find it easier to concentrate, maybe underline or make notes when reading on physical paper?
And only IELTS offers that paper choice.
Correct. So if reading on paper is a strong preference for you, IELTS is really your only option for that.
Okay, good point. Next question to ask yourself. The question type question. This is about the style of questions you prefer or find less frustrating. Do you kind of enjoy, or at least tolerate, a wide variety of different question formats, some of which can feel a bit like puzzles, like those IELTS true, false, not given, or matching headings or gap fills? Does that variety keep you engaged?
Or does that sheer variety feel chaotic and stressful? Do you much prefer a more standardized, predictable format where the vast majority of questions are multiple choice, like in TOEFL reading and listening?
If predictability and a uniform question style help you feel more confident and focused, TOEFL might feel like a better fit in that regard. If you thrive on adapting to different kinds of tasks, IELTS might be more up your alley.
Makes sense. Okay, now the one we flagged is huge. The speaking question. The human versus the machine. Yes. This often comes down to personality and nerve management. You need to really visualize both scenarios. Imagine sitting across from a live human examiner for the IELTS speaking test, making eye contact, having a conversation, maybe even seeing them smile or nod. Does that interaction feel supportive, or does it make you feel intensely self-conscious and nervous?
Was.
Versus sitting in a cubicle, wearing a headset, speaking into a microphone for the TOEFL speaking tasks. Just you and the computer responding to prompts under tight time pressure, knowing you're being recorded for later evaluation. Does that anonymity feel liberating, or does the lack of human feedback and the pressure of the clock feel more intimidating?
There's no right or wrong answer here, is there?
Absolutely not. It's purely about which environment you feel you could relax into more, allowing your natural speaking ability to come through. This is perhaps the most personal preference point of all.
Definitely food for thought. Okay, one last big self-assessment question. The integration question.
Right. This is about how you best process and combine information. Are you a synthesizer or more of a specialist?
What do you mean by that?
Well, TOEFL's integrated tasks, particularly in speaking and writing, really demand that you quickly process information from both reading and listening, identify the key connections or contradictions, and then articulate them clearly and concisely, often under serious time constraints. That's a very specific cognitive skill, synthesizing information from multiple modalities rapidly.
Okay, so that's the synthesizer. What about the specialist?
IELTS sections are generally more discrete, more compartmentalized. The reading tests, reading. The listening tests, listening. The writing task is purely about writing based on a prompt. The speaking is a conversation. You focus on one core skill at a time within each section.
So the question for the listener is, do you feel confident in your ability to quickly take notes, juggle information from reading and listening simultaneously, and connect the dots under pressure? If yes, TOEFL's integrated style might suit you.
Exactly. But if you prefer to tackle one skill set at a time, focus your energy on just reading or just listening or just formulating a written argument without integrating other sources on the spot, then the more compartmentalized structure of IELTS might feel more comfortable and manageable.
Okay, brilliant. That's a really helpful set of self-assessment questions.
hmm
So putting it all together, maybe we can offer a kind of final checklist based on those answers.
Yeah, let's try that. Think about how you answered those questions. If you found yourself generally nodding along to preferring North American accents, being a pretty fast and accurate typist, feeling comfortable working entirely on a computer, liking standardized multiple choice questions, being okay with or even preferring speaking to a machine, and feeling confident about synthesizing information quickly from reading and listening.
Then TOEFL IBT sounds like it might be a really excellent fit for your particular skills, preferences, and comfort zones.
hmm If, on the other hand, you found yourself leaning more towards being comfortable with diverse international accents, maybe you're a slower typist or strongly prefer the option of handwriting, perhaps you enjoy the variety in IELTS question types, you feel significantly more comfortable speaking to an actual person, and you prefer focusing on standalone writing and speaking tasks.
Then chances are you would likely feel more comfortable and potentially perform better taking the IELTS exam, either academic or general training, depending on your needs.
That's a good way to frame the final decision-making process. It brings it back to that core idea, self-awareness.
Definitely. So let's wrap this up. What's the big takeaway here?
I think the core conclusion we keep coming back to is this. In the great debate of IELTS versus TOEFL, there really is no single universal champion. They are, quite simply, different paths designed to lead to the same destination demonstrating your English proficiency. One isn't inherently easier or harder across the board. They're just different tests demanding different strengths.
Yeah, exactly. We've seen how TOEFL shapes up as this highly structured, computer-driven simulation, almost like a preview of North American academic life. It really rewards that rapid synthesis of information and comfort with a standardized digital format.
hmm
And IELTS comes across as a more varied, perhaps more internationally flavored test, assessing practical communication skills. It rewards flexibility in handling different task types, and crucially in the speaking section, your ability to have a natural, coherent conversation with another human being.
Well put.
So the choice isn't really about trying to game the system or find the easy way out. It's fundamentally about that self-awareness we mentioned. It's about honestly looking at your own strengths, your weaknesses, your preferences, even your anxieties, and then selecting the test, the arena, if you like, where you feel you are most likely to perform at your absolute peak. Which leads me to a final thought for you to mull over. What other big decisions in your life, maybe academic or professional, could actually benefit from this same level of honest self-assessment? Thinking not just about the goal, but about the path that best suits your unique profile to get there.
That's a great question to leave our listeners with.
Something to think about. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.